From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Ridle. Thank you for finding us on our smart TV app. Download it. If you don't have it, you can find it on Roku, your Fire TV, or your Apple TV. And if you're on YouTube, thanks for finding us here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and do the opposite. If you're on YouTube, download the app. If you're on the app, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube so you never miss any of the conversations that we get to have here every night at 8 o'clock on Fox 59 Tonight. We want to introduce you to a friend of mine here at the station. He's one of the faces that you see every day, every morning, starting at 7 a.m. on our morning show. He's been in the market for some time. He's a well-known name. And between the two of us, he's the one that does not need a haircut right now.
No.
Daniel Miller. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. By the way, you have all that memorized?
I do.
That's
I do.
a lot.
Right off the dome, man. Right off the dome.
That was pretty good.
Well, thank you. I wanted to have some cool people come by so people can get to know everybody here at Fox 59. There's a lot of people. You are one of the people who has had Russ on, and Russ has been here his entire TV career.
Right.
And then there's other guys like myself who have been to multiple stations in the market. You, of course, have been in this market at another station. You've been out to the East Coast. You're back. How has it been since you've been home? What's it been? It's been 4 years now?
5 years.
5 years.
It goes by so fast when you get older, Cameron Riddle.
Well,
yeah, but 5 years.
well, I'm hoping it doesn't go too fast, but it certainly does go fast because it's hard to remember. I do things by presidents.
Okay.
So when I started at a certain place, who was president? When I was at Channel 6, Trump was president. So
That's a good way to remember things.
that was the first time he was president, and now he's back.
He's back.
Different eras of life. Speaking of which, this is your main anchor era of your career, I think.
Second one.
Second one, but this is the one, right?
This
is the dream?
This is the one. I wouldn't say it's the dream because I'm the type of person you should always feel like you're hopeful that something else could come forward and in your presence and God could open the doors and give you something better than what you have. But
I thought that was God coming in for a second.
yeah, for a
With an
minute, but it was
opportunity.
Shalandon. Come on in, Shalandon. Since you opened the door, come and
Hey,
introduce
come on.
yourself.
We were
Yeah.
talking about God opening doors and opportunities, and you literally opened the door.
You literally,
So-
literally opened the door. So, yeah, it's been a wonderful time to be back in Indiana. I moved here in 1999 and started working in public relations. I came to Indiana for my fraternity. I'm a Lambda Chi from High Point University, and they brought me here to be the director of PR for the entire fraternity. So that meant traveling around to different colleges, universities, talking to, Lambda Chi's at the chapters. And I realized at that moment that I literally just got out of school.
Mhm.
I shall not be telling these kids that what they should not be doing because I'm just like them.
Mhm.
But I did that for a short period of time. And in the summer, I took some time off. And then I'm like, TV is where my heart is because while I was in college in North Carolina, I worked at several television stations, one of them being WFMY. It was a Gannett-owned station back in the day, and I was a weekend assignment editor there. And I just loved the industry. You know how it works.
What did you go to school for?
Political science and history. I'm
Okay.
a big history guy. I love everything history. So I studied that and just found my way into television.
And so when you were at that first TV station, how did you wind up at the TV station? Because that's a bit of a veer off course.
You know people who know people who
Mhm.
know people,
Mhm.
and you get an internship and you get a job.
Mhm.
And then I had a job while I was a senior in college, so that made it easier to make a little bit of money. But I started on the assignment desk on the weekends. You know how that works. You
Mhm.
listen to the scanners, you get to know the photographers, the anchors, the reporters, and then you start to send them out to stories, and then you get to meet the people in the community, and the rest is history.
What about that made you decide, you know what? Hang on, I kind of like this because had you ever thought about TV before then?
Oh yeah, I've always loved TV. I had a mentor growing up back in North Carolina. Went to work with her one day and fell in love with the industry ever since then. I always found that when you watch news, if you're not in not in the business, you don't really you have this idea about like what really happens. And that's how I was, because growing up, grandma appointment television was always 6 o'clock news. Then the evening news with Dan Rather comes on,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. And I found that to be kind of interesting and also awesome that people had appointment TV schedule.
Mm-hmm.
We had to watch the news to see what was going on in the community. It's a lot different now because people can get their news every second of the day with their
Mm-hmm.
phones. So, yeah, earlier than that was when I was probably in middle high school.
Hey, C, do me a favor. Hit that light switch. I want to see something. We just got these new fancy lights installed here in the studio. You talk
Well,
about
hold on.
things changing. Oh, look, there we go. Now, now you look beautiful. Yes, yes. There we
Yeah,
go.
I like this light better, and that light
Yes,
should be off
and
because
that's
then
perfect.
then my head wouldn't be too shiny. Shalandon, good to see you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. See, you never know who's going to walk in the door, bring an opportunity. In this case, some assistance with the lights.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're in North Carolina,
North Carolina.
and then you decide, you know what? I think I'm going to stick with this news thing. Because at some point, when did you?
Well, I didn't stick with the news
You
thing
didn't.
because
Okay.
once I graduated, right before graduation, I thought I was going to take the summer off and do whatever I like to do, which is travel. So after I graduated, I went back to the fraternity house, and Eric, a fraternity brother of mine from Indiana, traveled down from here, was at the chapter house, and he's like, "You'd be a great guy for our director of PR for the fraternity." And that's how I ended up here. They flew me up here for a job.
Hmm.
I took the job with Lambda Chi on Founders Road and fell in love with everything about the city. December 4th, 1999 was the day I moved to this city. I actually got here before the moving truck got here.
Hmm.
Um, and the rest is history. However, I took the job, stayed at the job until the summer, and then ended up taking the summer off. I didn't stay with the job.
Hmm.
It wasn't for me.
Hmm.
I was in the office all the time. I was sitting behind the desk, or I was traveling to different chapters. So what happened was we separated.
Hmm.
Basically, I got another job working at WTHR
Okay.
as a production assistant. So I
Okay. See,
got
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, no, not a lot of people knew about this job that I had at WTHR, where I ran the prompter and did a
Hmm.
little things behind the scene. But I was only there for a short stint of time,
Hmm.
probably maybe just a few months
Hmm.
before I ended up getting a job uh, at
And
RTV6.
that's where I knew the start of you. So okay, so you
Yes,
actually congratulations, you've been on worked at every TV station in this market
every last one of them in different
in different
capacity. In
capacities.
different capacity. Yeah,
Truly from the most entry level to now the main anchor of the most watched morning show in the market. So
the number one morning show in the
that's
market.
right. So
Yeah,
now Channel 6. I've been over there. I spent some time at Channel 6. I
yeah.
was an intern there. Grew up over at Channel 6. What happened when you were there?
I was the weekend assignment editor there. So I went from, working behind the scenes as a production assistant also, and part of the newsroom, but not technically in the newsroom,
Hmm.
to the assignment desk working in the newsroom on the weekend. Again, it was a job that I had in North Carolina when I was in college. So I knew what the expectations were for the job. Sitting on the desk, listening to calls, making calls. Erica Fly was my anchor.
Hmm.
She was the anchor that basically anchored the weekend news at the time. I
Hmm.
sent Rafael Sanchez out for stories on the weekend.
Hmm.
Uh, I had such a great experience there because the news director at the time, Debbie Bush, she was so encouraging and uplifting and positive, and always expected, not only me, but everyone in that building to be the best that they could be. And I think that says a lot about newsroom environments when you have a leader who can encourage you to be the best that you can be and also supports you. It makes the job so much fun because that job can be very stressful.
Hmm. Let's talk about Erica Fly for a second.
Oh, Erica Fly, she was just over Monday.
I love we Erica Fly is one of our mutual friends, and
Yes.
I love Erica Fly. When I was And she's also going to hate that we're talking about her, but
Yes, she will,
but
but I'll
she'll
tell her.
but she'll smile because it's you and I talking about her at
I
the
could
same
call her
time.
right now and see what she says.
Yeah, so she needs to come by sometime.
Yeah.
She was one of the people when I was an intern who gave me, and I still have the stack of scripts. She
Mm,
gave me a stack of scripts one day, and she was like, "Read these and practice these." And she was teaching me. Um, her big thing was would know her rundown well enough. She doesn't necessarily know every story and doesn't have the scripts memorized, but she would know her rundown to where when she saw what the name of the story was in the prompter, she would know what tone to read that story in immediately.
right.
So that was one of the things that I always take away and that I teach people when would know how you're supposed to sound. Because if we're talking about a murder happened on East 38th Street, that's not the tone that you want to deliver that story in. There's a different tone of which you deliver
Absolutely.
that news.
Absolutely. She is I have a lot of mentors and a lot of people who I consider uh a big part of my life
Hmm.
because of everything that they've done for me, and I've been trying to do that now for other people. But I can name several people who are instrumental in getting me here and why I'm here in this
Hmm.
position, and she's one of them.
Hmm.
She again worked in the business. She is now retired from television, but she, like you, she gave you scripts. She told me
Hmm.
to come onto the set because
Hmm.
I had no interest in it,
Hmm.
but there were people rumbling saying this guy should be on TV.
Hmm.
And the reason why I'm back in Indianapolis the first time on TV is because of a gentleman by the name of Tom Cochran,
Hmm.
who was a legendary news anchor in this market, who worked at WTHR as an anchor and then became a news director, who eventually brought me to Wish TV.
Hmm.
However, once I left Six, I went to a small little town in Jackson, Tennessee. Cameron, I sent tapes out when you had to put tapes together in the
Hmm.
resumes and you had to sticker it all up to so many different television stations around the country because, people are like, oh, you should be on TV, but you got to go to a small market
Hmm.
to get your foot in the door.
Hmm.
Even though I worked in the industry and the business for a while, which I knew,
Hmm.
and I felt that was so good for me because a lot of uh, people today don't get that experience. They can come right out of school and
Hmm.
be on TV in a top 25, top
It's
five
it's happening here.
market right out of school, which I think is great
Hmm.
for them.
Hmm.
For me, I wanted to be prepared.
Hmm.
I also wanted to see what it was like for me to go to Jackson, Tennessee and cover my first story of Betty Crocker being murdered in a corn bean
Hmm.
field by myself, shooting a camera, editing that story, and then producing a newscast to anchor that newscast that weekend and present that story that I went out and shot.
Do you remember your first story?
I remember that story. I'll never forget
I
it
don't remember
because
mine.
that was the first TV story that I ever put on
Hmm.
TV as a paid reporter and
I
weekend anchor.
I feel like mine had to do something. It was something breaking news,
Yeah,
and I ended
you're
up.
good at that.
Well, thank you. I think that was probably what that I don't remember cutting a package. I remember the first time going on. I worked in Saginaw slash Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
Something breaking news related, the 11 o'clock news that I did from the newsroom, and I remember them being like, "Hey, you didn't do that. You didn't do that without a prompter." So that's been my gift. But to your point, we go to a smaller market where you get to try to do those things, sometimes make mistakes,
You
learn
do
from
make
yep,
mistakes.
learn from those, and then you move up in market size is what the term we've used several different times. So for those of you who don't know, a market is the area in which we live. So the Indianapolis market is central Indiana. Then you have the Chicago market, and they're
Yeah.
all ranked by sizes
And numbers.
and numbers. And so the higher you go, typically that is at least it used to be. The higher you go, the more prestigious. Is that would you say that's the right?
Some think it
Sometimes
is.
I would
Um,
say something is. I don't believe that
I well, I never believed that because I mean, I believe that I could have gone to number one if that's what I wanted to do.
anymore.
You have to, especially if you are in this business and you want to be at the top, there are sacrifices you have to
Hmm.
make.
Hmm.
And there were some sacrifices that I wasn't willing to make.
Hmm.
A lot of it has to do with family, and being in a place that you really enjoy and love,
Hmm.
and also being around people who are supportive and are going to support you.
Correct.
A lot of people have a mission to go to the top and get to the top, but they also sacrifice a lot to do that, and
Being away from their
I'm
family.
seeing that now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are personal decisions that you have to make if that's what the career path you have laid out for yourself. I have friends. We both have friends who are working in different markets who are unhappy, and
Mm-hmm.
then people who are working in these markets who are extremely happy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all at the discretion of what you want and the plan that you have laid out for yourself.
Well,
But again,
you did make it up to the bigs, if you will.
yeah, I did. New England. I went to Boston. Never in my wildest dreams, and this is what I'm talking about. This was not part of my plan
Mm-hmm.
that I would make it to Boston. But before Boston, I was at Wish TV because Tom Carkin called me back from Jackson, Tennessee. Uh, by the way, I signed a 2-year contract
Mm-hmm.
to go to Jackson, Tennessee to be an anchor, reporter, producer, all of these things, and was willing to do this whole 2-year thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Carkin called me 6 months after I got there and said, "We're bringing you back to Indianapolis."
Okay.
I was in a contract,
Mm-hmm. That's I'm like, okay.
but we figured it out.
Figured it out. Okay.
And I think when you have, again, people who believe in you, who support you, and news directors who encourage you to go because they know that, okay, this is what you want. This is
Mm-hmm.
what you need. We can only give you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I was making $16,000 a year in Jackson, Tennessee.
Mm. Big money.
That was big money. I think my parents are still paying for some things, but yeah, you learn from that because it has to be serious. It has to be something that you want when you're giving up a job or you're making more than that to take
Mm-hmm.
a job or you're making extremely less. Uh, you have to fight for it. You have to go for it. So I took that job, signed a 2-year deal, stayed 6 months, came back to Indianapolis where I was a weekend morning anchor in Indianapolis and moved up the ladder. I enjoyed my time there because I learned so much, not only about myself, but about people,
Mm-hmm.
um, that it changed me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
It really did because I went through several news directors and people who were for you and were not for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also learned those who were going to look out for me. And that's how I ended up in Boston, Massachusetts, because there was a news director who wanted me to come to another station
Mm-hmm.
here
Mm-hmm.
when I was at Wish to anchor an afternoon newscast.
Mm-hmm.
But Wish TV wouldn't let me go.
Mm-hmm.
I can say this now
Mm-hmm.
because it happened. And um, so Wish TV didn't let me go, and I was where I was until the gauntlet dropped.
Mm-hmm.
I call it God's voice when you put it in his hands and let it go instead of controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we like to control things
Mm-hmm.
sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but when you let it go and literally put it in his hands, he opens things for you. But you got to trust that process. Wish lost that affiliation.
Mm-hmm. CBS.
No one ever thought that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Never, ever, ever imagined that would happen. And when that happened, uh, the door opened for me because the person who tried to get me out of Wish TV was in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I ended up in Boston for quite a while.
How was Boston?
It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life because I was in a new place as an older adult
Mm-hmm.
in a position that some people thought I could never do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they treated me like a king. People are like, why did you leave? They treated me like a king. Lee Rosenthal, I will always be indebted to him because he has always been a big part of my career since Indianapolis, believing in me and encouraging me to be the best, but
Mm-hmm.
putting me with people who were supportive, who I work well with, and who also had aspirations and dreams of doing this job the best that they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, trying to get to the ladder or trying to take someone's job. This is the job that was for me
Mm-hmm.
and was given to me. So I'm going to do it while I can. I have to lay the foundation for the next person who comes behind me because it's not promised.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I did that. And my contract came up after my second stint, and it was during the pandemic. And I was in a city that I loved, but in a city that I didn't know many people because, of course, I did morning television.
Mm-hmm.
Our show started at 4 and went to 11,
Mm-hmm. In the
and
morning.
in the morning, and I was the bookend. So I did the 4 and 5 and the 9 to 11. And in between that, breaking news and things like that. It was such a great setup. If you've never seen a television studio like this one, it was so incredible to do news there. I worked with some awesome people, Gene Levanchi, Sarah Underwood, Elizabeth Hopkins, all of the people that were there who actually supported me and helped me because I was the new guy.
Mm-hmm.
Sir Bonnie Banerjee was my first anchor there. And my first day there on the job, I knew no one.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know many of the towns. There was an executive producer by the name of Paige Tatum who actually emailed me some of the towns for the Massachusetts area, like Quincy. It's
Mm-hmm.
not pronounced Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
Woburn, and all of these other places that I couldn't pronounce. She had emailed me a list of places and how to pronounce them. Those are the things I'm talking about. How people wanted you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my first day there was a shooting at a hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital. And I remember before going to start my shift and start at work, you get there a couple of days and you drive around, you go
Mm-hmm.
to Patriots Place and you see Gillette Stadium, you see a name of a hospital up there, and it says Brigham and Women's Hospital. I'm thinking that's where it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Well, little did I know there were other Brigham and Women's hospitals, like
In the area.
surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
But they put me on the air. I just walked in the building maybe 2-3 hours before to start my first day.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a breaking story in the hospital. Lee Rosenthal said, "Daniel, go up on the desk. We're putting you on TV today, live." I was like, "What?"
Trial by fire.
He was like, "Where's your IFB?" I had my IFB. Do you know I anchored that breaking news coverage for 2.5 hours? And Lee Rosenthal was in my ear with the producer who also gave me a piece of paper that I still have today that said, "Sell that you know what."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I love this business, because you have people who really believe in you and who support you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
He
more,
wanted people to know what he saw. And he was like, this is your chance.
yeah,
Sell them on what I see.
that's exactly what that was about. But it's also more than that. It's, when we do the news, and this, we're giving, we have people out there who watch us and like, "Oh, you're on TV, you don't look this, blah, blah, blah." It's not about that for me. This is what you get. I try to do the best that I can.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about some of the things that you're going through as a personal person,
Mm-hmm.
but we show up and we smile
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Daniel, want to take a quick commercial break real quick? And then
Yeah,
we'll come
pay
back.
those bills.
Yeah, we got to pay the bills. And we're going to talk about what you're doing now here in Indianapolis on the
Sure.
morning show. And I bet you have some wisdom that you can give to people who are considering getting into this business. More Fox 59 tonight. It's coming up after this.